As a director, you're staging a play, you're staging a production, you're not writing a thesis. So basically I do a lot of research, but then I don't do any. And what sticks is what's made an impression. Months later, I remember certain images, I remember certain quotes, and the production is shaped by those most powerful impressions. Titus Andronicus is a violent, beautiful, and funny play. It's all of those things. It may be the most violent play ever written. And having said that, often it's actually strangely beautiful and haunting. What's wonderful about Titus is it's not actually a history play. The name, there was an Emperor Titus, but he's nothing like the character in this play.
You know, Shakespeare wasn't really that great a historian, but I don't think anybody was in that era. They all read Holinshed, and they read the Greeks, and they read the Romans, but they sort of got it all twisted around. There was no such person. But had there been, this is what might have happened. So it's a rollicking good story. A bloody good story.
I think it's wonderful to think of young Shakespeare in practical terms, that he wanted a success. And so he took a look at what Marlowe and Kidd were doing at the time, and he just notched it up. He beat them at their own game. So he wrote a play that was more violent than their plays, but at the same time that examines violence and looks at the concept of revenge.
It was a real genre that people were coming out in forces to see. So Shakespeare goes, okay, I'm going to take that genre and I'm going to outdo it. I'm going to do, almost his Tarantino version of it.
The imagery and the language is often really exquisite, and it's often really funny just in those moments where you think the play should not be funny.
In Shakespeare, you often start with some outrageous premises. One of these outrageous premises of Titus, and there are several of them, is that he has 25 sons, 21 of whom are dead at the beginning of the play, and all but one are dead by the end of the play. But you have to accept that.
Well, when you think of Titus, you don't think of the family experience show. You think of Shakespeare's most tragic, gruesome plays. So there's that whole element of keeping the acting company's morale up. Okay, guys, we're going to kill 13 of you today.
Before we started, I thought, this is going to be hard. This is going to be really dark and tough to get through. And it is sometimes, but it's mostly fun.
Yeah, we're having a good time. Well, and it's so absurd, the level of violence at times, that I think the only way to deal with it is to laugh. Yeah. At least we can. At least we have the benefit of playing and enjoying ourselves in that.
It's an incredibly fun play to rehearse. Actors love to kill. They love to die. They love to do things that they wouldn't be doing in real life. They like extremes. So while the play is certainly, what happens in the play is certainly horrific, the experience of rehearsing it is really euphoric. We can't wait to get to the next murder, and they love it, because killing and dying, actors love that stuff.
Darko is fantastic. He's got such a wonderful work ethic. And the first day he said, okay guys, fun. There's something to be said about that, being able to go to a dark place and really get there, but at the end of the day, know that it's still theater, and to leave on a light note.
One of the things that Mr. Tresnjak has done in the directing of it is he understands the play very well in terms of the balance between the almost Three Stooges slapstick moments of comedy. They're arguing about, no, cut my hand off, who's on first? And these moments of poetic horror, when the way he staged her rape scene, or the scene just before the rape where she's carried off to this beautiful operatic music. So all through the production there are relief valves for the actors. I would imagine Lavinia's probably got the hardest as a young woman in particular to sort of place herself in the middle of all that. Not easy.
It's certainly not an easy part to play, but one of the gratifying things is that in the journey of the play, I think Lavinia does get some satisfaction out of she gets her revenge. Often I've heard people dismiss it as so grotesque and violent and unreal. And then in doing research for the show, you don't have to look very far to see this happening to people all over the world. The number of women that I found who had been raped and had their hands cut off and lived to tell the tale is staggering. It becomes so intense when you think about what's happening in the world today. You don't have to, you can look on the internet and find a video.
We're in a strange time in the world where the knowledge of what's happening is out there, but it's also been packaged and sensationalized in such a way that it almost doesn't feel real, which is scary because it's very real.
I think that I'm interested in the play as both a Yugoslav and an American. As a Yugoslav, this idea of cycles of revenge, it makes me think a lot about Yugoslav history. As an American, especially after Abu Ghraib, after those images, those photographs appeared in the press, when I looked at them, I thought, this is the beginning of Titus Andronicus. And if one culture treats another culture this way, what are likely to be the repercussions? And that was the moment where I knew I had to direct the play. I think the question, it's a timely question, it's a timeless question, why good human beings resort to violence and to revenge. And in order to ask that question, you have to push the characters to the limit. If you're going to say that the violence is sometimes essential and that revenge has its place in the universe. So what's interesting about the play is, while it's extremely violent, I personally think that there are moral underpinnings to the play. I don't think it's all gratuitous.
Our previous production was contemporary, so we thought we'd mix it up this time and do something different, and have based it on a more classic Greek Roman silhouette, but with our own twist to it. Some of the initial research that one would do as a costume designer for the period, which is like the pottery and the paintings and some of that, but also some contemporary films like Fellini's Satyricon and the BBC series Rome. And what was particularly interesting, I think, about Satyricon was Fellini's sort of twist at the world. There's something a little lurid and decadent about his portrayal of the Greco-Roman world, and that's something we wanted to move into after Tamora becomes Empress.
Well, the start of the process was actually a phone call with the director, Darko Tresnjak, and going through all the violence, because in this play, every 97 lines, somebody has an act of violence done to them. And so I think the average is about 5.2 acts of atrocity per act.
So we went through it and I said, she needs to be with this person, that person, she's pulling away, she's being pushed, and that's just in the text. And it's coded, it's under the surface. Shakespeare did not need stage directions because they're in there. It's a subtle use of word, sometimes it's very subtle, but it's all in there. So we go through that, and then I leave him alone. And so we can have 2 sets of rehearsals. I'm directing something non-violent in this room, he's working on the violence next door. But you've got to stay on top of the rhetoric, otherwise it doesn't work.
We had to go through all that and say, okay, so now that we know all the violence that happens in the play, what's your vision? Where do you see that happening, and how would you like that to sort of work its way out once we hit the stage? So that's the first thing that happened. And then once we physically got together and we got to sort of look at the stage and where Darko was starting to position the actors, then it's also, where does the actor's impulse come from? What do they want to do? We're making sure that as we're building the fight, as we're building any act of violence, that the actors get a sense of, for me, first and foremost, breathing in balance. Are they breathing? Are they in balance? Because if they're taking care of themselves, then they're going to be able to take care of their acting partner and anybody else that they have to interact with on stage. sometimes the violence isn't just simply you and another person, it could be a group fight. And we certainly have a massive fight at the end of this play. So it's really from that core base of breathing in balance that then we start to go, all right, if this is your first intention, first move, how do we safely go for a grab? How do we safely perform that stab? Where does the weapon get placed? What kind of weapon is it going to be? Obviously, we don't use any blades that are sharp. They're always crafted for the stage, so they're rebated or blunt. And then we take it one step at a time. So we begin very slowly. So it's a dance. It's a dance of death, but nonetheless, it's a dance.
The first phase is the table work. We read the play, and then it takes as long as it takes to go through the text, go through it line by line. In this instance, it almost took 2 weeks. And I like to do that very slowly. Just go through it and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
I made the same deal with Darko that I made with Des often. I sometimes ask for lines back, but I say, I'll trade you one for one. I'll find some lines to cut if you give me these lines back, because everybody, you try to personalize your performance. I'm not so egotistical as to think that my Titus is the be-all and the end-all Titus, but it's my Titus. I feel like I own this particular performance.
I can't imagine any other life. And I love the research. I love the lonely hours. I love feeding the dog, waking up, feeding the dog at 7 a.m. and spending 3 hours before the rehearsals begin reading, doing the research. It's great. From that point on, I depend on the actors, on so many things on a daily basis for the success of the work, and that's great too. Every successful work of theatrical art is kind of a miracle, because it takes so many people, so many sensibilities have to come together. So many things have to come together, and that gives me faith in the universe when nothing else does. So while in the play Titus Andronicus, human beings do not exist well with each other, in order to do a successful production of the play, a lot of people have to work together beautifully.